All right. Well, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. I'm so used to doing this in the morning. Good afternoon. My name is Joshua Boatman. I'm the Regional Technology Director for the Ohio Valley region. And in today's regional command training, we are going to go over the consumer applet within command. So when we talk about the consumer applet, this basically is where you're going to control a couple different things. This is where you're going to set up the initial settings for your Keller Williams agent website if you want to use the ones that are provided by us. This is also where you will configure some settings for your Keller Williams consumer app. When you dive deeper into your agent website, this is where you're going to create various pages and landing pages and any kind of future customizations you kind of want to do with that. So today, we're going to go through the basics of setting up the website, what you need to do to make sure that you at least have the initial site up and running so you can start to drive traffic to it. So we'll kind of dive right in. I ask that if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, throw it in the chat, do the best, whatever makes you feel comfortable, and we'll kind of address it. So with any command training, if you've watched any of my videos or if you've attended anything that I've ever talked about, you will notice that I will always talk about the same thing initially. And that's going to be in the upper left-hand corner when we're in command, you're going to see this little red KW. And when we click on it, it's going to expand a list of all the applet names. I kind of always find that handy, especially if you're not familiar with command yet. So that way you kind of know which applets we're jumping into and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to dive into consumer, which is going to be this last applet on the left-hand side. And this is going to take us to our initial consumer page. So there's a couple things that we're going to kind of point out here. So we have a couple tabs running across the top. We'll talk about each one of those, especially the site pages and the landing pages within the class. The guide builder, if we have a little bit of time on the end, we might jump into that a little bit, just to give you some insight on that. And then we have site and app settings as well. So I generally will always start with site and app settings, or if you have this blue bar across the top, we can go ahead and click configure your site. And generally, if you click configure your site, it's going to ask you one of three things, right? It's going to say, hey, do you want to use the new KW site? Or do you have an existing Placer site that you want to use? Or do you want to see what else is available on the marketplace? For our training today, we're going to use the new KW agent site, which is the free agent website that's included for you within command. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to click submit. Oh, you know what? It's not letting me do that. So let's do this. They must have changed it. We're going to go into the site and app settings. And now what we're going to do is let's do agent site options. My apologies. So it should let us. Why is it not doing that? Oh, all right. My apologies. There's always updates with command. So on the left-hand side here, we're going to click learn more with Kelly Guides. Then we're going to see if this gets us going. We're going to say agent site, click continue. We're going to leave it, and hopefully this will take us, that's what I'm looking for. The goal is what we want to start with. We want to start with the Kelly Guide. And if you're not familiar with Kelly Guides, these are kind of like some quick step-by-step processes that have been built into command to kind of walk you through some of the initial settings. So that way you're not kind of bumbling around, clicking on things like kind of we're doing earlier that kind of moved the Kelly Guide link for me. So this is just going to help us get the initial site up and running. So that way you don't miss any T's or miss dotting any I's as well. So this is going to say, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to choose our subdomain. Then we're going to pick any themes and styling, and then we're going to create any necessary pages for our site. So we're just going to go ahead and get started at the bottom. The first thing it's going to kind of prompt you, and it's going to say, hey, just as a heads up, when you build an agent website, you need to make sure that you're using your appropriate DBA logo, right? So every, market center has their own DBA logo. So we want to make sure that we are, in fact, doing that. It's going to say, make sure you have your ownership statement within the footer, which should typically be there, but you can add that as well. And just make sure your site is in compliance with your local board, commission laws, state laws, rules, regs, all that good stuff. If you have questions on this, it just says, hey, recommend you reach out to your local board, your local market center leadership, just to see if there's any nuances you need to be aware of within your marketplace. If you do not know where your DBA logo is, you can click this little link here, and this will take you to the marketing branding page on KW Connect. And this is where you can scroll down a little bit, put in your market center number, and actually, hold on, what's the one? Choose this one. You can plug in your market center number, and then you'll easily be able to download your DBA logo for inclusion on all your marketing stuff. Just kind of want to point that out. Last but not least, it just is a little warning here saying, hey, we are not at KWRI, they are not responsible for verifying that what you have on your website is in compliance with your local regs. So they're kind of just saying, hey, make sure you do what you need to do because we can't verify that for you. So we're going to go ahead and acknowledge and continue. So what's really nice about this Kelly guide, as we go through the process, over here on the left-hand side, you're going to see a preview and a representation of what your site is going to look like. So the very first thing we need to select is our subdomain. So when we talk about subdomains, I'm going to kind of just give you a quick rundown on exactly what that means. Most people are familiar with the term domain name, right? Google.com is a domain name. CNN.com is a domain name. Amazon.com is the actual domain name, right? So we consider the domain name the words before the .com. So in this case, kw.com is the domain name. The subdomain name is going to be anything that is in front of the domain name. So in this case, you can see my current subdomain name is joshuaboatman.kw.com. Joshua Boatman is the subdomain name. So we get to pick what we want to be before the .kw.com. So we can come over here on the right-hand side and you can kind of type in whatever you want with a couple caveats. You know, it can't be longer than 30 characters, cannot contain any spaces, cannot contain any special characters, and you can only have one subdomain name selected at a time. So in this case, I have joshuaboatman.kw.com. If I were to change it to joshboatman.kw.com, someone else could in fact claim Joshua Boatman, because once I click claim domain, I release what my previous one was. A couple things of note with that as well. Make sure it's nothing derogatory. Don't put anything negative or offensive, no curse words, just standard stuff like that. They do a pretty good job of filtering that out, so you can't accidentally type in something offensive, but just be judicious with it because this is something that would be viewable from a public domain. So go ahead and find whatever you want. If you don't currently know what you want your subdomain name to be, you can just pick something now, and then I can show you later how easy it is to change. Since this is a subdomain name, the actual website in this case will be joshuaboatman.kw.com. The thing to keep in mind with that, if you want to have like a true domain name, so say I want joshuaboatman.com, or I already own that, we can forward that main domain name, joshuaboatman.com, to joshuaboatman.kw.com. But what I recommend is if you're going to purchase your own domain name, try to make sure that you can purchase a domain name that can match the subdomain name. Just so that way, when you're forwarding that site over, it still looks like the original domain, if that makes any sense to you guys. I know I used the word domain and subdomain like 16 times within 6 seconds. So hopefully you kind of follow the logic. But either which way, select it, hit confirm, and if it's available, it's going to say, congrats, you've claimed it. The next thing we're going to talk about on this section here is the marketing profile. This generally should pull over from command. If you're missing information here, please feel free to fill it out. Here you can plug in your title, your email, if it's not already there, your office number, your mobile number, any and all that good information that you need to include, as well as your picture and or your brokerage logo. This is where you're going to upload your domain name or your DBA logo. And then if you have a team, you'll be able to upload this as well. This is just an example. It's going to show you what it looks like if you upload your team logo. So in the upper left-hand corner, you'll always have the red KW and or the brokerage logo. But to the right of that, you will in fact see your team logo. And then just to confirm a couple things, your links to your Facebook, your Twitter, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, all of those good things that will appear within your menu on your website. And then just for reference, a link to your actual Keller Williams consumer app. So you just kind of do a quick cursory glance. If this isn't a one-time thing, we can always come back and adjust these things later, and we can even always run through the wizard again if need be. But I just kind of want to make sure you guys are aware of that. So easy enough. We're going to go ahead and we're going to save and continue. So now it's going to take us to the next section here, style and theme. So for all intents and purposes, style and theme, the initial thing you're going to pick is, do you want the red theme or do you want the dark theme, right? In the end, there's not that much difference other than some subtle nuances, right? With the red theme, some buttons and logos and symbols will be red. In the dark theme, things will be, dark. Each one doesn't really matter. I prefer the dark theme in general. But beyond that, that's just a visual thing. And in all honesty, you're probably not going to see much of a shift if you pick one or the other. It's very, very subtle. So feel free to pick which one you want. Of course, this is easy enough to change if you ever want to switch it up. As we kind of move further down this section on the right-hand side, we have our homepage text. So here, you can see we are on the homepage for my website. The homepage text is going to be what we want to appear above our search bar. So what do you want? I picked turn your dreams into an address. This could be search for your perfect home. What's really nice about this, as you go through here, you can see it's going to show it live. So you're going to be able to see visually what does that look like on your page as you're building it. Below this is where you're going to be able to upload what we refer to as the hero images. So the hero images are going to be the single and or up to 5 rotating images that will appear on your homepage. Currently, you probably will have 5 standard ones. If you want to remove one, you can easily click the trash can. If you want to upload one, it's as simple as clicking upload and then browsing to a particular image. A couple things to keep in mind here. If you have more than one image, it will display randomly when each person visits the page. So it's not something that will slide through if you just stay on a particular page or on the website for any length of time, but every time the website loads, it'll be a different image. I highly recommend you look for images that are pertinent to your market, right? Don't have images of palm trees if you live in Antarctica, or I should say Alaska, right? So try to make sure that if you're putting pictures of houses, it's representative of your market that you buy and sell it. A couple rules when it comes to images. Just don't randomly go to the internet and grab some random image off of a site or through Google Images or from someone else's website, save them and upload them. That is copyright infringement. So you want to make sure that if you use an image, you either are licensed or you have permission to use that image. You go to a website where they give away free royalty images. So for instance, one of the most popular ones that I go to is unsplash.com. And here, pretty much any image you find are they're royalty free. They're freely usable. So you can use these for your business. You can use these for, marketing, anything along those lines. You can search for pictures of houses. And then if you see something in particular, feel free to download it and grab it and use it. I would still go with the idea and the mindset that you try to find something that is local, that makes a great representation of your market. Feel free to do that. But the biggest key that I will tell you as well, if you're concerned about images, you can always use images and pictures that you yourself have taken, as long as you have taken them within public. So a lot of times, if you have previous pictures of houses that you have sold and you want those to be your hero images, feel free to do that. Obviously, I would definitely check to make sure if they're interior photos that you check with either your buyer and or the previous seller or the new owner of the home, that they're okay with you using that image for marketing purposes. A couple other things to note: they must be in JPEG and or PNG format. Pretty much anything you find or you have access to probably will be in those two formats, but it's always good to point out. You need at least to make sure that it's at least 1200 by 1200 pixels. It'll tell you pretty quick if it's not, and then you are limited to 5 images that will rotate through upon the page load. Pretty simple process, but I think it's one of those things I would definitely take advantage of it, just to give yourself a little bit of a different look and feel from all the different other Keller Williams websites. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to save and continue. All right, so now we're actually going to start to customize the site. So this is actually going to walk us through creating 3 different pages for our site. The first one is going to be an About Us page. And you'll kind of notice we're actually on our website /about-us. So a couple things we're going to note is we have the search engine optimization. This is where we can pick the page title. So this isn't what's going to appear here. We're going to adjust that under the content section. But for SEO purposes, this is where we tell Google from a text-based perspective, what's this page about, right? If you have a team, this could be about the Josh Boatman, spell my own last name, about the Josh Boatman Group, right? If you wanted to, this could be about your market center. This could be about Keller Williams. You know, there is going to be a specific page that you can use for about yourself, about me. But you could sit there and use this as the overarching goal, right? If you're not on a team, it's great. You can sit there and talk about your particular market center, and then use this as an opportunity to describe, you know, the Keller Williams value proposition, anything unique about your market center and or your location, and why, you know, that is value to your client. As we go further down, we have this ability to adjust that URL slug. So the slug is the subdirectory. That's going to be what appears after the slash. So currently right now it's about-us. Here I can do about-Josh, you know, the Josh Boatman, if I can spell my name, it's one of those days. All right, I could do that. I could just do the Josh Boatman Group, whatever I want, with a couple things to keep in mind. You can't do any spaces and no special characters. You don't have to do dashes. You can always kind of run things together as well if you want. I kind of always like the dashes. It makes it a little bit more readable. But you could just, you know, do about, you know, JBJ, Josh Boatman Group. In the SEO description, so the little I here kind of gives you a pretty good breakdown, but this is what you describe what's on this page in a little bit more detail for search engines to optimize. So said another way, if you kind of sit there and take a moment, you can sit there and say, learn about the value, learn about why you should choose to work with an agent from the Josh Boatman Group. Now, I recommend doing that. I recommend taking a moment and actually just writing a short paragraph about what this is, about what's contained on this page. Some people will recommend you can just do a bunch of different keywords, right? You could do, you know, Josh Boatman Group, you could do agent, you could do value prop, you could just do a bunch of keywords followed by commas. I don't like that, and most search engines are pretty smart when they read that SEO description that they know you're trying to overload the keyword search in a sense. So I think just be organic about it, and then as it pulls this information and people are doing different searches, inevitably will hopefully rise to the top because of what our SEO description is. One of the things when we mention the word SEO, a lot of times people will be like, well, how do I improve SEO? How do I do that? What, you know, SEO, right? What is search engine optimization? It's basically the breakdown of making sure when someone does a Google search that your page reflects information contained within that search, that you appear within the search results. Trying to improve SEO, in all honesty, is a really tough thing to do. There's a reason companies like Zillow and Realtor.com, Redfin, they spend millions and millions of dollars on their web presence and basically battling the SEO algorithm. I don't like to try to compete in that market. For me, an agent website is just something for me to be able to draw my clients to, not necessarily generate organic leads from SEO searches. I can do SEM, search engine marketing, if I want to drive specific keyword traffic to my site. Doesn't mean don't take the time to put in an SEO description, but I would throw something in there, but don't always count on SEO as some ultimate lead generation platform for you. And then last within this dropdown, we have the content. So now when we're in the content section, that's actually where we're going to change what we see on this page. So when we're under the company header, we can do about the JB group, right? I could spell it out, but we're actually building this live. The header here is going to be what appears behind this. So as anything, if you're going to use images, make sure that you own these images, they're properly licensed. You could use this as an opportunity to have a picture of your team, maybe side by side, shoulder to shoulder, maybe in one of those faked poses where one person's laughing and you're looking at each other and pointing, whatever makes the most sense. Or if it's going to be pictures of your market, make sure that it represents your market as well. And then, as we kind of work through this, and I'm not going to configure this whole site just for time constraints reasons, but just as you see, you're going to kind of quickly work through this. So our intro paragraph is going to appear over here, right? So whatever I type on the right appears on the left, just so you have an idea of what it's showing up. Headlines right here, right? The description is going to be the description over here, and then any image you want. You have 2 sections that you can customize that way. So take advantage of it, include pictures of whatever makes the most sense. And then your footer, title, and header, this is where you can include, some people I've seen include, maybe their value proposition. Some people have included an image of the, what is it? I can never say it right, but the W4Y2Cs something thing, whatever the thingamajig, the value prop, the MVVBP or whatever it is, you can include that information there as well. And once you feel comfortable with that, go ahead and click continue. The About Me section, this is going to be specifically about you as the agent. So if you're a solo agent, this is going to be your opportunity to sit there and say, hey, learn about me. It's going to configure the same way as the previous page. So we're not going to dig too deep into it, but we have the SEO section, where you, instead of about me, you can say about Josh. We can change that slug about Josh as well, any SEO descriptions. And then as we go through the content section, basically, right, just going to translate just like we did before. So anything we see over on the right-hand side is going to appear on the left. By default, it should pull from what you have within your marketing profile within command. A couple of things of note with that. If you have not filled out your marketing profile within command, filling it out here does not fill out that profile within command itself. So you're probably going to want to go back to that profile and fill it out. If you later change, or you go back and you change what's in your marketing profile within command, that does not translate automatically to this page. Once it just basically pulls information in on this wizard as we're going through this process, and any changes you make here are specific to this page, so they don't sync. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. As we kind of go through the process, just you can see, who I am. I put my title in here, my bio title, and, a little bio about me. I'm just a guy with a passion for helping people see how technology can improve their lives, right? And then any contact information that I want to include, and being very specific, this is unique to this page. So if I change my phone number later in my command marketing profile, I'm going to need to make sure I come back through here and update it as well. we're going to go ahead and click continue. And last but not least is just the contact us page. Same process. You can change the slug. I would always leave it /contact though. And you can kind of come through here and within the content. One of the things I do like to point out, while you cannot pick the information that you are requesting on, right? So you have your first name, email, last name, phone number. What's really neat is you can adjust the message hint. So the message hint is that call to action within this message box that's going to give you that ability to figure out what do you want them to put in here. By default, we have some text, but if you want to customize that, definitely feel free. And of course, here it's going to pull that contact information, but if you ever change it, you're going to want to make sure that you update your phone number and or your email address. And we're going to save and continue. It's going to basically take us to the end of the guide. It's going to give us a couple different options. What do you want to do? Do we want to go to the frequently asked questions on answers? Do we want to go to the site settings and manage some things, create more sites? Generally, I'm going to go and we're going to manage the site. And now what's really cool about that, what we have just done, our site should now be live. So we can see our configured site. If we were to go to it, you can see here's the search for a dream home. Here's the graphic that I used. Now there's some additional things that I'm going to show you how to add. But we have our drop downs as well. Here's our link to our different social media. Pretty simple. And now, for all intents and purposes, you really don't have to do too much else with your site. If you're new to the business, you at least get your website up and running. Now you don't have to, you don't have to worry about building other pages or any of that stuff right now. You can focus on learning other aspects of command, and at least you can feel confident that if you send people to your site, they at least will be able to do what the most important thing your site should do, which is allow them to search across the MLS or multiple MLSs. Because one of the things I always like to definitely point out to people, one of the powerful things about being a part of Keller Williams is since we are tied into every MLS across the country, someone can actually search on your site for properties anywhere. So they're not just limited to your particular marketplace. So for instance, I live in Dayton, Ohio, but my Keller Williams site will allow someone to search for properties in, Miami, Florida. And it's going to pull up any and all those properties. And what's really phenomenal about this is going to be, if anyone requests any information on any Miami properties, just took a minute to load, there's just so many of them, I will in fact get the lead on it. Now, am I representing people in Miami? No, probably not. I might not. Well, maybe I'll fly down and help them buy some real estate. Why not? What is this? $3.7 million. Oh, wow, look at that. It's crazy. I love to live on the ocean. But maybe this is just an opportunity for me to set someone up so that they can kind of see what's out there. And then I could potentially refer them utilizing the referrals applet within command to put them in the right position. All right. So now let's talk about what if you want to take your websites to the next level. You kind of want to build some pages. You want to do some pretty cool things. How does that work? Well, if we go to agent sites, we have, or if we go back to command and we're under the consumer applet, right, we're on this main page. Agent site pages are going to show us a list of all the different pages that are considered agent site pages, but we also have something called landing pages. So the biggest difference between an agent site page and a landing page is an agent site page can appear within your menu, and it will actually look like it's coming from your site. So said another way, an agent site page, for instance, is going to be from your subdomain with the URL slug that you create. A landing page doesn't necessarily come from your website. So to give you an idea, here's one I've created for a neighborhood. This is a neighborhood landing page. It actually comes from pages.kw. It's still tied to me, but it's not coming from my agent site. So I cannot include this as a menu item within my menu. Just kind of want to show you and point out those differences. Typically we get those kind of questions. What's the difference? Agent site, landing page, why does it matter? It just really depends on what your perspective is and what you want. If you want something to be a permanent addition to your website, you're going to want to create an agent site page. If this is something temporarily that you're just utilizing to generate leads, whether it's for a specific listing, a specific event, something like that, then you would create a landing page. And we're going to kind of go through some of the additional differences between those two next. So let's say I want to create an agent site page. Maybe I want to create something that allows me to capture testimonials. I want to start collecting reviews from my clients so that way I can display all those 5 stars that I'm going to get on my website. So to do that, I'm going to click create a new page in the upper right hand corner, and it's going to give me 2 options within this modal: my agent site or as a landing page. I'm going to click my agent site because that's where I want it to be. I'm going to click create page. And now this is going to take me into the agent site setup wizard, right? First thing I always recommend, we want to come up here in the upper left-hand corner and we want to change the name so we can identify what this landing page is going to be used for. So in theory, if we're going to do maybe testimonial capture, I'm going to just call it that, testimonial capture. Simple enough. On the right-hand side, this is where you're going to see all the available widgets that I have to use that I can display information on this site. So we have 2 things up here. We have widgets. If I close that up, and we also have content blocks. We have 2 types of content blocks. This is if I just want to include an image and or just text. When dealing with blocks and widgets, a couple of things to note: when you drag them over, if you've messed with the email builder within designs, this functions the same way. We are just stacking blocks on top of blocks. So when I drag an image, if I want the very top of my page to be an image, I'm going to drag that image block over. I'm going to let go. It's going to ask me to either upload an image. So you know what? Let me throw this flag up here. It's going to upload that image. And then I can click on it, and now the image is now on the page. If I don't want this, anytime I add a block, if I want to delete that block, I can easily select it and I can delete it. We do have the ability to shrink it down, I think. There we go. So we can adjust it a little bit, however we see fit. I don't think we can go any bigger. We can go smaller, but we generally can't go bigger than what the original size of the image is. If we want to get rid of it, down in the lower right-hand corner, we just hit the trash can to delete it. Same thing with the text block. If we drag the text block over, this just allows us to insert some text. We have some standard options: bold, italicize, underline, strike through. If we want to include a link to something specifically, right, we can do that. The font size, and a small list of different fonts that we can use. I'm always a fan of the Roboto font. Makes me think of that song, Mr. Roboto. I'm sure that's not exactly how you say it, but if we don't want it, we can click delete. So the content blocks are pretty self-explanatory, right? Images allow you to add images. Widgets give you a little bit more options. So within the agent site template, we have a couple things we can do. If we have a team, we could build a team page. So if we grab this team widget, we drop it over here, it already has some information for us, right? We have meet the team, and you're going to see the available spots for us to include our team members. The one thing to keep in mind when it comes to this team member widget, though, is that you can only add people to this widget if they are officially on your team within command. So said another way, if your command, they have to have their own command account and tied to you as the team member for you to be able to add them, their photo, and their contact information here. We actually will not configure it until we're done adding all the various widgets. So if we just want to add the team, maybe at the bottom of that, I also then want to include a contact form. So if I drag the contact form over, you'll kind of see it suddenly, but you see, you can, hopefully you can kind of see it. The green bar is either at the top or the bottom. Whenever we see that green bar, wherever we drop the widget, it's always going to add it below the green bar. So it is, since it's currently below that team widget, I'm going to let go of the contact form. And now I have that here as well. So we're actually going to kill this for now, and let's get rid of this. We're going to end up doing a testimonial capture form, but I kind of want to walk you through just a couple of these other ones as well. The agent profile widget, this is if you want to create a specific about me page. Maybe you want a about each team member page, right? So here you could upload and select their photos, type in their information, their contact info if you want a specific page for each team member. And then of course you could include a contact form below each one. Pretty simple. So now let's say we really want to get to the point of this, right? We want to add our testimonial capture. So if we drag this over, it's going to be grayed out. It's going to say, hey, this has not been configured. So if we look in the lower right-hand corner, though, we have our configure widgets button. So if we click this, it's going to pull it up and it's going to walk us through doing what we want. So what is the team name? The Josh Boatman Group. What headline do we want? Please review me, or leave a review. And then here we can kind of go through and we can update the text here. So by default, it gives us some default text if you want to go through it, right? And it's pretty good, right? Thank you for being a valued customer to help me to continue to provide the best service, yada, 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 right? Here we can change the review headline. How would you rate your experience from 1 to 5 stars? I'm going to do, please give me 5 stars. And then you can include your placeholder text. Just so the review placeholder text is just going to be another call of action that you can kind of prompt them to recommend, what they should say. Not telling them what to say, but just questions, right? How was your experience? How did we help you? Just to kind of spur them on the type of things we're looking for them to answer. And if we're okay with this, we're just going to hit save and apply. And now our review page is done, right? We can come and click this little arrow up here. Our widgets have been configured, and we have a nice little page that we can, that is a blah, 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 that we can use to capture testimonials. If we go back, we're going to see we have our testimonial capture page here. We can go through and actually, let me refresh this. We can then go through, and if we want, we can now add that to our site. So how do we go about doing that? If we build a couple different agent site pages, how do we go about adding them, right? So if we go to site and app settings, this is where we can kind of configure a couple different things. Because keep in mind, once we build an agent site page, we definitely need to then make sure we include it within our menu, or our menu on our website. So from the agent site and app settings, we'll jump back to this here in a second, but we're going to go all the way to agent site pages. And this is where you determine what you want to appear within this menu. So here you can see from different classes, I have a couple different about me pages that I've created. So if I jump back to my website, and I go to my menu in the upper right-hand corner, you can kind of see it's exactly what we're seeing here. About me, leave me, about me again, contact us, about me again, and about Josh. I can easily come over here and adjust the order. And this is saved instantly. So if I'm adjusting the order by left-clicking the 6 dots to adjust the order of the page, that's going to be live over here instantly. So if I refresh, now leave me a reviews on top. From here, I can also click the 3 little dots to the right and delete that page from the menu. Now that does not delete the actual site page. I'm just removing it from the menu. So maybe I don't want all of these, and this is live. So now when I come back and I refresh this page, now we only see a couple different pages there. If I want to add a newly created page, I can just click add page. It's going to show me a list of everything that's been created. I can go ahead and select my testimonial page. Click continue. I can name it testimonial capture. Here, once again, I can decide what I want the slug to be. Not do review me, please, just because I'm being funny. And of course, any SEO description, if I want, you can just leave that new page in there, or you can take the time to fill that out. If you hit save, this is now live, and just instantly, right? We come back and we refresh our page. And from our drop down, we have our testimonial capture, which is basically just the same page I have up there. So agent site, site nav settings, agent site pages, this is how you control what's in your menu, and you decide what is and isn't within that menu and what order they're presented in. Pretty simple. While we're on this screen, we're going to kind of work our way backwards. So theme is where we can go through and we can change it from the red theme to the dark theme, from the dark theme to the red theme, whatever makes the most sense. If you want to adjust that as we kind of went through that setup wizard within the Kelly guide. Featured listings is a neat thing. So you'll notice on my homepage, I have this section here called My Solds. Well, you can actually name this anything you want. But the idea behind it is it's a featured listing section that you can manually curate to show what is on there, right? So this is not something that is filled out dynamically. So said another way, you don't set up search criteria that will automatically show properties. You're going to pick and choose which ones you want to feature on your site. So think of this from maybe potentially like a listing presentation standpoint. You know, I always like try to turn everything that we do within Command as a way for you to sell during a listing presentation, right? One of the things to keep in mind when you're on a listing presentation, you know what, 90% of all the agents are going to do the same thing who go out and interview for that listing, right? Y'all are going to put it in the MLS. Y'all are going to open up open houses. Y'all are going to make sure it shows up on realtor.com. You know, y'all are doing 90% of the same thing. It's going to be that 10% that differentiates you. So something that would be simple enough, right? You can sit there and tell a potential seller like, hey, you know, when I list your property, I'm going to feature it for the first 30 days on my main page of my website as a featured listing. You know, does that mean is that going to sell the house? Probably not. But is it some true value add that you can use that is someone else offering that same kind of functionality? In a market like this where things are selling so quickly, maybe you want to just advertise your solds. So you can change the title to My Solds, or, you know, featured listings, or investor specials, right? Now, what's really cool about this, because, and let's just say we want to do investor specials, right? Maybe you deal with a lot of investors, and you know what, that's your bread and butter. You can display any listing under the featured listing section. It just doesn't have to be your listing. You did have nothing, blah, 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 had nothing, you had made, I can't even speak today. You may have had nothing to do with the transaction, but you can still list it. Just don't say you sold it, right? Don't say My Solds and then list another agent's sold listing there, right? Just there's some caveats with that. But you can pick whatever headline you want, and you can select up to 12 listings and curate those. So if we click select listing, we can just view our listings, or we can view all listings. And you're going to see the power of the KWLS, because currently right now across the country, we are storing almost 1.5 million listings within the system. You can search by property address, MLS, city, zip. So if I do city and I say Troy, Ohio, I'm going to see a list of all the different Troy, Ohio listings. If these are specific investor listings that I know are active, I could search by that specific property address or MLS number, locate the listing, hit select, can select up to 12 of them, right? Hit done. They're added to our featured listing section. I'm going to save those changes. And just like anything else, what I think is just really important, whenever you make a change, it's live instantly. So here's our investor specials. Should show up here. Get rid of these. And let's try this one more time. I have been having some issues with my site. So it looks like the featured listings aren't updating as quickly as they should. But in general, they should show up relatively quickly. I'm going to have to dig deeper into that and see maybe there's a time frame since I'm switching the listings around. But what's really cool is you can feature any number of listings up to 12. I should say up to 12 listings, not any number, but from any source as long as it's within the MLS, and showcase them on your site. Now, a couple things with that, just to remember, these are in fact properties that you must manage them. They are not going to drop off. So if you put a property that is for sale on here, let me try one more time. I'm just going to add another listing, just out of curiosity. If you put a property that is for sale and it sells, it's not going to automatically drop off. You cannot set it up so it only is going to show active featured listings. So I just kind of want to point that out to you. To the left, as we move across the left, we have our URLs. This is where we can change that subdomain name that we set up initially within the Kelly guide. So if you want to be Josh Boatman or the Josh Boatman or Joshua Boatman Group.kw.com, you can feel free to set that up. And then further to the left under general, also under URLs, this is a quick way for you to find a link to your consumer app. Further to the left under general, this is where we can change that hero text, any of our hero images, our app link, and if we want to set up any of our listings, our active listings that have virtual tours, we can indicate that as well here. One thing to note under preferences, we have this collapsed automatically, but this is where you can decide if you want to display Keller Mortgage info on your app, as well as the Keller Insurance Company on your app as well. Typically, we recommend why not. I mean, honestly, Keller Mortgage is probably one of the most competitive mortgage companies, if not the most competitive mortgage company in in the marketplace. Gary has done a great job of trying to make them competitive. And one of the cool things that we're going to slowly start to see with agents is that investment opportunities to do a joint venture with Keller Mortgage. So that way you can expand your investment strategies and your income streams. If you wanted more information on that, at one point talk to your TL. Pretty simple, right? We've kind of done all of that. The last thing we're going to kind of quickly talk about is landing pages. So landing pages functions just like the agent site pages, except landing pages give us a little bit more meat on the bone and a little bit more customization options. So to kind of walk you quickly through the different widgets you can utilize on a landing page, we're going to create a new page in the upper right-hand corner. We're going to select as a landing page. We're going to click create a page. And now we actually have a couple of different widgets here. So to kind of walk you through it, agent branding is just going to be an agent branding column. So if you want to either filter that down at the bottom or at the top, but this is where you're going to be able to say, hey, here's my info. Of course, you can configure this widget, change the photo, change the contact info. Maybe you have a specific landing page that you want instead of having your info, maybe it's a team member's info and picture. Branded header is just going to be a standard branded header across the top. Functions the same way if we configure it. This is actually going to only show your information. So this is going to be one of those things that since this is your agent site, it's going to just always pull your information directly from your marketing profile. Close that out and let's delete that. Legal footer functions just like the branded header. The legal footer is something you'd want to include at the bottom of your landing pages, just so that way it kind of will not only include some links to your social media, but it just kind of shows your brokerage information, any copyright information as well, just so that way, you're presenting yourself, because keep in mind, if you're going to use this for, listing purposes for sure, somewhere, someplace, the logo, the branded logo of the DBA of the brokerage has to be on there. And delete that. And as we kind of work through this, we have our lead form. So the lead form is pretty cool. So this is where if anyone fills out information on this lead form, this is where they will then funnel that lead directly into your command. And you'll get an email, you'll get a Kelly notification if you have the Kelly app set up, as well as a command bell notification. When you go and you configure this, you can only really adjust the header here. You can't, set anything else up, but this is just a quick way to capture some information. And sometimes I struggle to get back to that. So let me back out of this. Let me create a new one. All right. And now we have some pretty specific ones here that I want to kind of walk you through. We have a listing, we have market snap, we have your local expert video, testimonial capture, and then a site where you can specifically send them to download your app. One of the things you may find you want to do is build a specific page for a specific listing. So say you're going to take advantage of, Facebook campaigns within command, you can build a specific page for that. So generally, I recommend you start off with a branded header. We grab the listing, and you kind of see it's going to have like a nice little setup here. And then I would always drop in at the very bottom a lead form. And then so we can kind of scroll down. Here's our lead form, and then our legal footer at the bottom, right? So here's our little legal footer. In all honesty, you could even drop in agent branding right underneath the lead form if you want. So we've added a bunch of things here. We click configure widgets, and it's going to walk us through. So we can't do anything with the branded header, so that's kind of already configured. So we already see the green check mark there, but the listing doesn't have that green check mark. If we click it, it's going to give us the ability to browse the listing. We can look for a specific listing, and there's one I always like to use in Troy. It's this one right here. It's actually been sold a long time ago, and it's not a Keller Williams agent. It's from a local company there in Troy called Garden Gate. But I always like to use this listing as an example. So you'll select the listing. You will have access to all the different images within the MLS, or if you want, you can upload a custom image. But I like to select this front one, and I'll show you why. So it's for this small, tiny little house in Troy, and the agent spent the extra $100 to have the twilight photo done, which I just think is hilarious. It's like this 700, 800 square foot, 600 square foot house, and they paid the extra $100 to have the twilight photo. I just think that's hilarious to me for some reason. But anyways, when you select the listing, it pulls in all the property information, right? It pulls in, the images, right? You have a detailed map, features of it, right? All this cool stuff is available. You have your contact form. You just save and apply. And now you have a page that if you publish it, we can go to landing pages. Here's the page we just created. And now we have a link to something that we can then send our Facebook campaigns to directly, advertisements directly to it. And it's something that's super nice. So let's see which one I set up back in April. I'm always curious when I leave a page out here. Oh, this was just a Westbrook. But if we go and we look at the page, we have this nice little section that we can drive traffic to. One of the things that I always kind of point out, you'll notice all this gobbledygook on the end. If we click the three little dots on the end, this is where we can go back and edit that page. We can deactivate it, delete it, or we can change the URL. It just allows us to change this end. We can't change the first part, but what we can do is we can put in the property address, So that way it's a little bit more, whoops, I already have that already exists. So let's do, and let's create it. Over here on the left-hand side, we have the ability to turn it off and on. So why would you want to turn something off and on? Say you've built a specific landing page for a specific event. Maybe you wanted to build something about a upcoming shred event, or maybe your office does a pumpkin giveaway or something like that. You could build a specific page for that. And then turn that off and on when either the property sells or the event is over, or as you're working on it. You may want to work on it in a sense while it's still in the deactivated stage. Landing pages cannot appear as menu items on your page. These are unique links that you need to use and copy and send that URL out. A nice thing about a landing page, especially if you do one specifically for a property, you may want to leave a few of these up. And this is just something else to mention, you know, potentially not center your entire listing presentation around it, but just say, hey, one of the things I'm also going to do, not only will your property be featured on my website's homepage, I'm also going to have a custom page dedicated to your property, right? And then have an example of this, right? Where you can kind of pull it up and show them like that this is a dedicated page to your listing. And I think that's just kind of one of those small things that you can add to a little bit more flair to your listing presentation, right? It's not any one thing, it's a culmination of things that are going to set you aside from everyone else. So I know we kind of covered a lot of things, right? But I mean, the real basics of this is making sure consumer site and app settings, start your Kelly guide, configure your agent site, and make sure you have that thing set up the right way as quickly as you can. So that way, at least you have a web presence. And then over time, take advantage of building out additional pages. You know, one of the neat things about the consumer applet within Command is that it's easy to use. While it's not heavily customizable, you really don't need a lot of flash when it comes to a site, right? In the end, one of the things we like to talk about is, if you think of Google, right? Look at this. It's pretty basic, right? This is your homepage. You may have some featured listings if you want, but you know what? It's just a search page. Well, the most popular search engine in the world, right? The number is Google, right? What does Google do? It's a blank page with just a search bar. Really no difference here. The goal of your site should not be in some amazing destination, but it should be an easy to use place for you to send people so that they can search for homes. And any home that they find, you will get notified if they request more information. You, in fact, get that lead. The only other thing that I quickly want to point out, if we were to do a new landing page, just want to make sure we cover a couple of the other ones. Listing was pretty self-explanatory. Market Snap, this is where you can build a dynamic page for a specific neighborhood. So for instance, here you can see I have one for Westbrook, which is a neighborhood that I live in within Troy. What's nice about this, you could add some text and some images, and this is where you could have a destination for a specific neighborhood. So maybe within your marketplace or within your farm, you have specific neighborhoods. This is where you can drive traffic to it for people to get a update on what's going on within the neighborhood itself. So currently right now there's 4 active listings, 11 are pending. Average day on market is 10 days, average list price, average price per square foot, the sold statistics. And this is basically a 12-month rotating, I believe it's 12 months, 12 months rotating time frame, right? This will change daily though. If a new listing comes on active, it'll show it. If it drops off, it'll show it. So just kind of keep that in mind. To add that, it's pretty simple. Once we add it, just like anything else, when we configure that widget, we can put in our header, we put in our postal code, And based upon that postal code will give us the available neighborhoods. So I should be able to find Westbrook in here somewhere. Oh, and there it is. Pretty simple. A couple of the other widgets to point out. Your local expert. This is just a different type of branded, what's the word I'm looking for? Agent branding. So this is just where you can provide just a different look. So maybe if you're building out your listing, right, you may want that at the bottom because that may fit a better look. It's a bigger picture, it has a link to your app for them to download. Video would be if you want to upload a video to your site. So if we drop in this and we go and we configure this, you can either provide a link to like a YouTube video that you've already uploaded or upload the video directly to your site. What's valuable about this, you could do some videos, maybe introducing your team and include this on the team page, or just have a page where you maybe talk about specific developments. So if you think about it in a specific way, you could have a video and then you could even have a market snap below it. So you could have a video of maybe you talking about Westbrook or driving through that neighborhood, right? You just filming from your car. And then of course, testimonial capture, pretty simple. This is just where people can capture your like you can capture reviews on yourself. And then just the download my app is just where you can kind of interlace it in so people can download your consumer app. We've made a lot of improvements to the consumer app over the last couple months. So some really cool things that they can do with that. They can draw their own search, their own map searches. You'll be able to see what they like, what they don't like, what they favorite, what they view, and you'll get notifications of all of that through command. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I know we covered a lot in a short amount of time, but that's kind of the goal with this. I always tell everyone, I don't expect you to be an expert on any one applet after sitting through a 1-hour class, but the biggest goal with them is to just make sure that you kind of know what's out there and what certain things can do, because you don't know what you don't know. And now that you know what some things can do, it can lead and direct you into where you want to invest your time to learn more. So I think it's just you, Rebecca. So you have any questions, concerns, criticisms, compliments?
That was great. Yes, helpful. So just need to get in there and play around with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's one of those things. The one thing I always recommend, if you have any further questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. We do have a video repository on our regional website. So if you go to, and I'll put it in the chat as well, kwovr.com/library, that you'll see a bunch of recordings of different videos that I've done on a lot of these classes, as well as some of the other Market Center Tech trainers. And then I highly recommend you take advantage of your MCTT, your Market Center Tech trainer located within your Market Center. They kind of do what I do at the regional level, at the Market Center level. So they're your go-to resource with all command related questions. If you don't know who that is, ask your MCA or your TL and they should be able to point you in the right direction.
Okay, great. All right, fantastic.
Awesome. Well, hey, if you, we do regional command training every single day. So make sure you check the calendar and show up when it makes the most sense. And I hope you sell a bunch of houses and make a bunch of money.
Me too. Thanks a lot.
All right, take care.